Hi there everybody, this is Ms. Nelson here, and today we are doing lesson 9.1 in our 4th grade Florida Go math books. This is a new chapter on decimals and relating them to fractions. So first, in this first lesson, we're going to talk about how we can change or relate tenths to decimals. And the essential question is, how can you record tenths as fractions and decimals? Okay, so Ty is reading a book about metamorphic rocks. He has read 7/10 of the book. What decimal describes the part of the book that Ty has read? In other words, they want us to write 7/10 as a decimal. Just a reminder, a decimal is a number with one or more digits to the right of the decimal point. You can write tenths and hundredths as fractions or decimals. Okay, so the first way that they say to be able to solve this, or the first way to change 7/10 into a decimal, is to use a model and a place value chart. So here's our model. They've already drawn it for us. They've broken it up into tenths, and we would color in 7 of those tenths. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we color in 7/10 of the chart. And you just write that like your normal fractions, 7/10, 7/10. And then we're going to take this 7/10 and we're going to write the 7 in the tenths place. So there's no big number in the front, so there's no ones, so that gets a 0. Here's the decimal point that divides the ones from the tenths. And there's nothing in the hundredths place, so it would look like 0.7 or 7/10. So that's the first way to do it. The second way, they say, is to use a number line. So we'd have to finish filling out this number line. They've done the top for us. 0/10, 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, blah, 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 blah. We'd have to fill in the rest of the decimals. 0.0, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, 0.7. Here's our 7/10. Underneath our 7/10 is 0.7. So 0.7 names the same amount as 7/10. So Ty read 0.7 of the book. Okay. Next little thing right down here at the bottom. How can you write 0.1 as a fraction? So we're going the opposite way. They're giving us the decimal first and they want us to write it as a fraction. You look at the number. That's going to be your top number, your numerator. It's a 1. So it's going in my numerator. And then I just count like place value. So 1's tenths. It's in the tenths place. So the tenths goes on the bottom in the denominator. Okay, so that's how we write fractions as decimals or decimals as fractions. And now we're going to take it a step further and we're going to have a mixed number that they want us to write as a decimal. Okay, so here's the problem. Oops, get back to my pencil. Tara rode her bicycle 1 6/10 miles. What decimal describes how far she rode her bike? So they want us to write the mixed number 1 6/10 as a decimal. It tells us you've already written a fraction as a decimal, so you can also write a mixed number as a decimal. And they've given us our same two ways. The first way is the model and the place value chart. The second way is the number line. We'll start up here with the model and the place value chart. And you do the same thing. You shade in 1 6/10. So 1 whole and 6/10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we would write that 1 6/10. That's the fraction way to write it. So now we're going to take that and we're going to put it into the place value chart. So 1 is going in our ones place. It's the big number that comes before the decimal point. In this case, it happens to be a 1, so we put a 1 in the ones place. And then we have left this 6/10, 6 in the tens place. We don't have anything for the hundreds place. So we would write that 1.6 or 1.60. Same thing. So you would say that as, in words, 1 and 6/10. So just to review, the big number, the whole number that's in the front, will go in front of the decimal point, and then the fraction is what is going behind the decimal point. Okay, so number line, same way as we did on page 343. Just this time it's going to have a 1 in front of our fractions. So 1 and 0/10, 1 and 1/10, 1 and 2/10, 1 and 3/10, 1 and 4/10, 1 and 5/10, 1 and 6/10. And that's the one that we're looking for, 1 and 6/10, but we can fill in the rest of these also. 1 and 7/10, 1 and 8/10, 1 and 9/10, and then it would go to 2 and 0/10. Okay, so writing in the decimals, 1.0, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, 1.6, 1.7, 1.8, 1.9, and then we go to 2.0. And if we go back and look, we can see that our 1 and 6/10 is equal to 1.6. So 1.6 names the same amount as 1 and 6/10. So Tara rode her bicycle 1.6 miles. Okay, so that is the lesson for today, taking fractions and writing them as decimals. Just a little hint. The way that I tell my students to do this is like this. Say, for instance, we have 5 and 9/10, and I'm supposed to write that as a decimal. This big number goes in the ones place. Then I have to put my decimal in front of my fraction, and I just say it has a 9 in the tens place. Or, let's say we have 7/10. There's no whole number, so there'll be a 0 in front of the decimal point, and then there's just a 7 in the tens place. Let's make a bigger fraction. Let's say we have 3 in the hundreds place. No whole number, so 0 in the ones place before the decimal, and then I need to put a 3 in the hundreds place. So my 3 needs to end in the hundreds place. Tens, hundreds. My 3 has to be in the hundreds place. So that would be written as 0.03. Let's try another one like that. Let's say 5/100. My 5 has to end in the hundreds place. There's no whole number before the decimal. My 5 has to end in the hundreds place. So tenths, hundreds. I'll put it there. And so fill this in with a 0. Okay, let's pretend we had 13/100. There's still not a number in the ones place. The 13, the last digit of the 13, needs to end in the hundreds place. Tenths, hundreds. The last digit is the 3, so the 1 goes in front of it. Okay, so this is lesson 9.1. If you're in my class, you should have filled out page 343 and 344 as you're watching the video. If not, you need to go back and do that now. Password, it's phone. You can write that down in your planner so that your teacher knows that you watched the video. And if you have any questions, leave me a message. Thanks.